narratives that define our democracy. Dr. Tony Olisa Mbeki delivering razor-sharp analysis, and Ebuka Franklin and Chisom on the question wheel, driving the conversation. We bring you the most compelling discussions on governance, policies, and power plays. Stay informed, stay engaged, stay ahead. The Polity, every weekdays at 9:15 a.m. Exclusive on Udala 104.7 FM Onitsha.
So I must tell you that I like the energy I'm having already. Can I say the backstage energy we're having already about today's program, because a lot has been happening when you talk about politics in Anambra State. We are counting 53 days to the D-Day. I'm talking about the day we're going to have election in Anambra State. It's 53 days from now, and lots of things have been happening from different quarters, coming from people who were said to be owing some persons, coming from reaction from CSOs, some persons being dragged to EFCC, or some document being unearthed in respect to dealings people have had in the past. So I must say that it's been a whole lot that we have to consume in the past 24 hours. And I must tell you that I don't know how people of Anambra State and Nigeria have been processing all these things. But something has been worrying me. That campaigns began officially on June 11. And we're counting 53 days to the election, and I have not seen the manifesto of any of the candidates. We have 16 political parties taking part in this election. I have not seen their manifestos. But in the last global election, manifestos were flying around as early as the campaigns began, and now we haven't seen anything. And I'm wondering if we're leaving the substance to begin to dwell on inanities. But this is not going to be the bulk of our conversation today, because we have a whole lot to do on today's edition of Polity, Tuesday edition, the 16th of September 2025. You know what we do on this platform once we congregate. One size Zukoro, of course. And how do we do it? We open the pages of newspapers, look at the headlines there, and from there draw our conversations. And like I told you, that today promises to be exciting. My name is Franklin Ebuka. Chisom Chinedu, good morning.
Good morning, Franklin. Good morning, Franklin. Good morning, Nigerians. When you were talking about Anambra State politics, I told you guys something off the microphone, so I might as well just say it here as well. One of the things that has stood out for me since the entire, what I call it, started, was the angle of women in politics being slut-shamed. It's not going to be the first, but I am just wondering when it's going to be the last. I mean, look at me. Tomorrow, someone might just, of all the things to have on my person, because I am going to be on the ballot, or because I become a political figure, someone starts to slut shame me. Natasha Akwachi-Dwanha was in the first. Anambra State vice governorship candidate for one of the political parties is not going to be the first. I don't know who the last is going to be. I doubt there is ever going to be a last. As I recall, it's not a Nigerian thing. Over there in America, the last election, it was also brought to the fore. When do we stop slut-shaming women in politics? Is there ever going to be an end? Can we start to look at women? Can we start to... if you want to drag me as a woman, look at the substance of who I am. Could you please leave what happens under the sheets alone? Frankly, I don't know.
Okay, so that's a big question. When that is going to happen, I do not know. Of course, we have to bring in Tony now. Let's get to know what he's been gathering so far and how he has been processing all the developments in the polity, especially as it concerns Anambra Gubernatorial election 2025.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, the good people of Southeast. Good morning, India Anambra. Good morning, India Onitsha. Wherever you are listening to us from, it's always a pleasure to be here. Remember, we are back in our sanctuary, and we are here to do the normal rituals. And remember, whenever you are right inside the sanctuaries, definitely the spirit will envelop everything. So you may not be ordinary humans again, as you may care to know, but the most important thing is to do the work that we have been asked to do, to bring enlightenment, to bring knowledge, to bring objectivity to the people. That's what we are here for. Good morning, Franklin. Good morning, Chisom. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tony.
And we are talking about Anambra State election, just like you said, 53 days away for that election. That tells you that it's quite fast approaching. No matter how you look at it, it will come and go. And we are trying to look at some of the developments, many things happening. And whenever there is election, expect anything that you may not even imagine. We expect anything. When we've been talking about politics of mudslinging, politics of slut shaming, politics of this, but those things could be the distractions or side attractions, whichever way you try to look at it, depending on the divide you are. But the key thing should be the issues. What are the issues? Yes, I have listened to many candidates. They have come here, and many of them on different fora. They have come out to say, I'm going to stop insecurity, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to fight that. Outside insecurity, what are the other challenges? For me, many of them are looking at the immediate problems, and none of them seems to be talking about problems that we may likely encounter in the future, or talking about future plans on how the state will set out or distinguish itself amongst the rest of the states. I've not seen that, but just like you said, the campaign materials or the manifestos, many of the parties have not released them. Outside Labour Party that has done its campaign flag off, and the ADC, they have done their campaign flag off. ABGA hasn't done their campaign flag off. What they did was inauguration of the campaign council, which is not a flag off. So we'll be looking at when they also flag up their campaigns. We also have other political parties. PDP, I don't know what's going on with PDP. I don't know if they're truly contesting this election, or they're just there as a bystander or a passerby or a passenger. I don't know. But nevertheless, the other political parties, the YPP, they also are on their own, doing their own thing. I don't know if they have also had campaign flag off. I don't know. I'm not too sure. And we also have even the candidate of AA and then AAC. So there are other things we've not seen. Anambra State is the pride of Igbo land, no matter how you look at it. We are seeing great intellectuals and national icons coming from this very state. This is a state of likes of Kedike, Chuba Kalibo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chinua Achebe, blessed memory. There's so many of them. They all came from this state, and we know the part they played in national politics and also African politics, in the world politics. So it is also important that every eye and everyone is looking at Anambra State. What should be their fate? And for me, we've got so much to look at in this state. I'm looking at the issue of easing transportation in the state as part of the plans. Anybody who is going to come on board will also look at. I'm also looking at ways of bringing down rents, because these are immediate problems, immediate challenges people are facing, and nobody's talking about it. Many people are paying through their nose for their rents, especially accommodation. Is a problem. There seems to be exploitation. And also there are other needs of the people. Those in the agrarian communities, they need support in many ways for them to be able to bring out their agricultural products. And we also look at how to use agriculture, use ICT to engage the youth. Yes, the governor has been doing one youth two skills program. I'm aware that the second batch, about 8,000 plus, they will be giving a grant. I think, I don't know, any moment from now. I saw the flyer, I saw the news that the second batch of the one youth two skill program will be giving a grant, and that second batch, from the flyer I saw, about 8,000 plus. It's a plus, but we're also looking at how to deepen, how to expand that scope to make sure that people are greeted with different skills, either in ICT or vocational skills. There's so many things. So we're also looking at how to use those, ingredients to solve the problem of insecurity and how to also bring in technology in everything we do. So I don't see until some of these parties release their manifestos, we look at all the T's and all the I's and see if they are really dotted, if they are really crossed, and ask plenty of questions.
All right. So me, as I talk to you now, I still have a copy of the manifesto of former governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano. It was in hard copy and in soft copy. I still have a copy of the manifesto of Balo Zibo when he contested, telling you that these guys came out with it. I still have a manifesto of Oseloko Baze. But like I said, we are just getting towards this very election, and all the candidates, let me say the major ones, they have been going to places, going for local government tours, meeting people, and trying to talk to them that they are the best thing that can happen, or the best thing better than jollof rice. But that document that has
that legitimizes you being on that ballot,
we have not seen it. So does that in any way show a sign of unpreparedness on the part of these very people?
I'll start by I think not the word legitimize, but kind of shows how serious you are. It's just like going for an examination, but you don't have probably a note to show that you are even reading for this exam. You have never been to class, of course, outside of the present governor of Anambra State. None of them has been a governor before, so you've never been to this class. And even if you've been to this class, everyone who has sat an examination knows that you'd normally have probably a jotter where you jot down important things. This manifesto is supposed to serve as that proof, as that notice to the people. I am ready, see proof. I want to work. This is what I want to do. Like you go into an examination hall, this is what I'm going to write if this question comes up. And so I don't know if it's about the fact that the people are not asking the right questions, or the fact that the institution, the government, the constitution, doesn't make it a law for things like this to legitimize. That's why I'm going back on the word legitimize initially. Because if the law makes it a compulsion that this legitimizes you being on the ballot, I think we would be having serious talks by now. Also, I'd like to think that when politicians gauge the IQ of the people or the way they react to certain things, they act the way they do. Maybe our people have shown them over time that we are not very actively concerned or involved. Look around the population involved. Usually essays, SSAs, 8s on this and 8s on that. You would barely find an average Nigerian, except for when something really happens, engaging in all of the vituperations that come from these politicians. So I honestly don't know why they keep doing things like this, but when the people are ready to demand answers and demand them squarely, then we might have to start with the constitution giving us a right to do something. To say, if you don't present your manifesto between so and so days to the elections, you cannot be on the ballot. Probably until then, they do what they like and they go scot-free.
All right, because that document is quite important, because it's like a covenant between the people and these people who are seeking for your vote. That's why when they get, maybe if any of them is elected and you want to hold them account, you can easily go to the document and say, you promise so and so. I know when APC was trying to come into power during the time of Muhammad Buhari, I know the kind of promises they made. At a point in time, people were trying to hold them to their words, and they said, some of these things are not contained in our manifesto. Some of them were made at the spur of the moment. For that reason, you can't hold it against us. But if we have these very documents and we study it, we can ask them questions, the hows and how they want to do it. And eventually, if any of them gets to win, we can use it to ask questions on what they've been able to do and what they have not been able to do. Now, let's get into this another conversation, which, of course, yesterday it was hot on another social media platform, even beyond Nigeria, talking about a certain candidate who was said to be owing some persons some amount of money, and he was accosted at his hotel in Abuja. A video was made and released, and since then we have seen different documents. Some persons have said that it was stage managed. Some persons have said that the person in question who came to dry the debt, that the person is somebody wanted by EFCC and what have you not. We have read plenty of things regarding what happened. What do you know, Tony?
Before I delve into that very drama, for me, I think is drama. I'm going to come back to that. I also wanted to chip in something about manifesto. It's important for people to understand that manifesto is not enforceable in court. You don't take someone's manifesto to court and say, I want to enforce this person promised us this, and then he couldn't do this, he couldn't achieve this. courts do not reference manifesto because it's not a legal document. You know, the word manifesto from Latin word manifestum usually means something that is obvious or clear. I remember during the 17th century or 18th centuries, monarchs issue manifesto to justify war, you know, to justify their intentions during this war or even before they waged the war. And over the time, during the spread of democracy, it was something the politicians adopted. I think Karl Marx was forced to adopt that, and that was during his, you know, his own time before Britain. I think Honorable Bannerman, you know, took the lead. But that's much I want to say about manifesto. It's important, and just as you say, the last time we had the manifestos is usually prepared by the party or the candidate, and the last we saw of the candidate of ABGA was the one he referred as the People's Manifesto. But it's a social contract, it's a social deal between the party or the candidate and the people. That is one. Then coming back to what you asked about the drama that played out, I have been going through a lot of documents. My own, I always side or sit on the side of facts, law, and the people. So for you, if you are listening to me, you understand that my analyses are usually based on facts, law, and the people. And you know, most sometimes I bring precedent or historical background to some of these issues. Now, I saw these documents flying around. First, I saw checks, I saw bank transfer receipts generated as through bank transfers, and now I saw petitions before EFCC. And now, look at these issues. There was a video where the candidate of APC was accosted by some group of persons at Transcorp Hilton Hotel Abuja, one of the most luxurious hotels in Nigeria. The man was coming from the hotel with the wife and the son, and he was about to get into his vehicle. We saw some persons who were demanding payment, asking him to pay 1 billion. They transferred to his account that he should pay the amount. If he doesn't pay it, he was not going to get away from that very place. That enough is enough. That's why the people of Anambra State rejected you, that you use their money to go and run for campaigns. That was what the video was more about. Now, we saw some statement coming from different camps. First was from Abga, that they claim, look at the person that you want to govern the state, look at he's a merchant of debt, he's a fraudster, he has actually defrauded some people, and that was why they disgraced him, they blocked his pathway, they never allowed him to get into his vehicle until intervention of the hotel security and some of his police escorts before he was allowed to get into his car. But on their own sideline, the APC camp now said that those persons were sent by the governor of Anambra State to disgrace Okachukwu, the candidate of APC, knowing fully well that he has resorted to propaganda. These are claims, but what, like you asked me, what was I able to find out? From the reports and from the facts before me and from the records and from the receipts and from the documents I have before me, there was a transaction between Shopee Nigeria Limited and Zodon Nigeria Limited. Now, who is the owner of Shopee Nigeria Limited? Okachukwu is a real estate company. Who is the owner of Zodon Nigeria Limited? The Achema Ampa, the young man that led those groups that APC actually say that they came to disgrace Okachukwu, sent by, according to them, sent by Soludo. So that's the man who owns that very Zodon Nigeria Limited, a real estate company. So what that, from the reports and from what even the coalition of civil society organizations of Nigeria and petitions before EFCC, from all these reports, I was able to gather one, that Amba Achema, who owns that Zodon Nigeria Limited, made a transfer of 1 billion naira to Shopee Nigeria Limited, owned by Nicholas Okachukwu, and that transfer was made in 2022, and the transfer was made in respect to 10 hectares of land where he had got some off-takers, those who would buy the lands. It's more like he's buying the lands from Okachukwu to sell to those who have made payment to his accounts. That's just the basics. But it happened that there was a breach of agreement, breach of trust, breach of contract. When John Nigeria Limited couldn't give those lands to those who had made payment into his company's account, they now wrote to EFCC. They petitioned EFCC, and what EFCC did was to arrest Ashema, the owner of that Zodon, who had collected money from off-takers to buy land, and the land and their money, he paid in some of their monies. He paid these monies into Shopee Nigeria Limited, that's the company owned by Okachukwu. It happened that EFCC first released Bombell when he made a statement that he was going to settle those people he had collected money from. But later on, he was rearrested when he did not meet the agreements he had with EFCC. But this time around, EFCC paraded him in 2023. Paraded him with a big placard.
So that explains the placard we saw in the
media.
Yes,
the EFCC paraded him with a big placard, and the offense was fraud and obtaining by false pretense and some other things that EFCC charged him. And later on, he was able to make certain commitments to those he was owing, those off-takers, those who had paid into his company's account to buy land. He was able to make some commitments, and he was released by EFCC. And this man was trying to explain to EFCC that he did not actually take this money. He made payment to Nicholas Okachukwu's company for these people to get their lands. That was agreement. But being that Nicholas Okachukwu, according to the young man, said that he was highly connected, that he cannot touch him. But he had petitioned EFCC again, this time around, on Nicholas Okachukwu's, and he gave evidence of all the monies he transferred to Shopee Nigeria Limited account. First, we saw 100 million transfer, 100 million transfer, 100 million. He was making it in the brackets of 100 million. There were ones he did with 50 million check and all that. So if you put those things together, they amounted to 1 billion. He produced the receipt of the transfers he made to Shopee's Nigeria Limited, Okachukwu's accounts, and he asked Okachukwu, release this money so that I will settle these off-takers, that you can't be holding this money, and EFCC will already be as the real fraudster. Whereas you are the one that defrauded my company, and where my company failed in their contractual agreement with those ones. And that's exactly what is going on. And EFCC now, from the report I have, they have the petition, they have acknowledged such petitions, and they're on it. That is just what happened. From who had lodged this before now, the APC, they have been saying, why don't you go to EFCC? The man has gone to EFCC, and I've seen receipts where EFCC has acknowledged his petition against Nicholas Okachukwu over 1 billion naira transfer made into Shopee's Nigeria Limited. Right. That's exactly what happened. And there's another video circulating where one man went to his house.
Okay, I think that one is as old as Methuselah. Okay, okay. I think it's been a long time we saw that very well. We just want to dwell on the one that happened yesterday, because from what is happening now, it seems like it's going to be one day one trouble for Anambra before the Guber election comes. Because in the coming days, I want to say that in the coming days we might be seeing the deluge of other dirty politics coming out. So we are going to watch this. Whatever happens, we are going to bring it on board. But what we are saying is that let us play fair. Let's not pollute this very system. We know that politics is not all fair, but it can be fair if we want to make it fair. So this is what we are saying this very morning, and we have to look at the papers now to see what they are saying. Today, this morning, we have 5 newspapers. We're going to brush all of them and see the headlines before we get to bring you the analysis. And we have to begin with the headlines on the Nation newspaper. The banner headline says, Presidency, APC slam Atiku over hunger, hardship alarm. It has a rider, ex-VP's low score for federal government out of touch with positive developments. That's the presidency saying that better one. 4.445 million potential voters pre-register with INEC in 4 weeks. You can see page 27 of the Nation newspaper. Inflation slides on stable economic growth, low food prices. CPI drops to 20.12% for 5th consecutive month. You can see the story on the front page of Nation newspaper. Then this one says George returns motion by Kanu to CJ for reassignment. The story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Dangote refinery creates 24,000 jobs with 1,000 trucks rollout. It's on page 3. Tinubu cut short vacation expected back today. It's on page 2. Why Kata Bridge must be demolished by federal government. It's on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And then JTBOK's NIN ROC as tax IDs. See that very story. And then the final one we have on the front page of the Nation says Senate plenary or express court order to determine Natasha's return. The story is on page 4.
All right, then we are going to go over to the next paper on our desk this morning. Let's see what some of the stories here say. And of course, taking the stories on the Vanguard newspaper. Bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara. Mosque as peace deal collapses. This is on page 5. Has some writers here. Troops foil multiple terrorist attacks in Katsina, Kebbi, Zamfara. Another one here, gunmen kidnap Catholic priest in Kogi. Find all of these on page 5. Tinubu cuts 10-day vacation, returns to Abuja today on page 48. 70 civil society organizations TINAS summon IBAS to give account in Rivers on page 14. My achievements will speak for me in 2027, Governor Idris on page 47. Our plant ended 50 years ago, or 50 years of fuel queues in Nigeria. Dangote refinery on page 20. On page 19, inflation rate drops to 20.12% in August. On page 48, no glitches, no excuses. PDP warns ENEC on 2027. Presidency Atiku Baker over hunger, looming revolution claims on page 8. 2009 agreement, Sanu Nasu to shut down varsities. September 22nd on page 48. We're still on this back and forth with the universities and the federal government. Is there ever going to be an end in sight? Big question there. ADC to court. You have no power to sack Mark-led exco on page 9. NAS to Natasha. Allow Senate courts play constitutional roles on page 8.
Well, everybody's striking or threatening to strike, and somebody will say, why are they striking when Super Eagles cannot even score?
Oh, yeah.
Because if we have so many strikers, and we don't have people who deliver over there, all right? Now, look at the headlines on Daily Trust newspaper. Mafias out to kill my refinery. Dangote is the one saying so. 3 patients die at AKTH as KEDCO caught power over debt. Presidency article trade words over hunger, poverty. You can see that on page 20 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Then this one says a Miss Peace deal in Katsina. Bandit abduct 55 in Zamfara. And I heard it happening yesterday morning when they were in the mosque praying. And these guys came and abducted them. FCT doctor strike. Services grounded in hospitals. Page 9. Tinubu cut short vacation. Returns to Nigeria today. 2027. UN warns parties against hate speech. And last one from this very front page, Kano Maradi rail project at 60% completion, president.
All right, let's go over to the Guardian newspaper. Money illusion fuels fiscal crisis as states' debts deficits soar on page 6. FG orders relocation of roaming cattle to grazing reserves on page 29. And again, I have to say, are we still in 2025? Talking about cattle openly grazing and roaming? Oh well, you see them every day, almost times, on your way to Amansi and environs like that. $4.5 billion fraud trial. Court grants Emefiele's request for forensic examination on page 4. NMA rejects salary cut for Lagos doctors, faults FG and funding on page 5. Adeleke devastated, laments as flood ravages Ocean community on page 5. Peace deal collapses as bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara on page 29. Stable exchange rate, food prices drive down inflation to 20.12% on page 15. People are still hungry. It's gone down, but people are still hungry, A pack of spaghetti still sells for over 1,000 naira. A liter of vegetable oil is still sold for over 3,000 naira for 1 liter. International Day, Nigeria's democracy faces grave threats from hunger, corruption. Article CSO's warn on page 6. 2027, Nigerians won't accept technical glitch excuses. PDP warns INEC on page 3. FG suspends customs FOB levy on imports on page 7. How your refinery saved Nigeria's oil sector by Dangote on page 3.
All right, so quickly on the front page of the Punch newspaper, beside the nameplate, presidency fires back as article 1 of revolution is on page 21. Food prices crash. Farmers fault FG's order as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. The story is on page 24. It has a rider. Order won't work. FG must subsidize transport, agri sectors. AFAN millers. FG to distribute 2,000 tractors to farmers. And then you see from the front page again a picture story of Dangote trucks where they have been mobilized for them to begin to lift petrol from that refinery to other parts of the country. They are beginning with 11 states, and the headline there says Dangote vows refinery won't fall to oil mafia. Dangote vows refinery won't fall to oil mafia. The story is on page 21. South is behind as Southwest maintains voter pre-registration lead. It's on page 7. Nepal protest. 2 Nigerian inmates rearrested after jailbreak. It's on page 4 and 5. FG suspends controversial 4% import duty levy. Page 23 of Punch newspaper. Above the nameplate, Sanu Nasu issues strike notice over unpaid allowances. Is on page 21. FX inflows reserves boost naira to 1,497 naira 8 cents. And this one says Tinubu Fubara and foreign trips. IBA sets for handover. Sorry, it's on page 20. Sorry, it's on page 2. And I must ask, is the president cutting short his vacation because he wants to be in Nigeria and witness the handover of the reins of power to Fubara in Rivers State? Okay, so these are the headlines we have this very morning, and in a moment, of course, we have to begin the analysis. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Polity. Get involved now.
Of course, you are listening to the Polity on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. We are live on our Facebook page, Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Get on that very page, drop your comment in respect to any of the developments you have heard this morning. And also, you can head to our YouTube channel and Instagram, Udala Radio, and get to watch live. Like I do tell you all the time that you can push the notification button on our YouTube channel so that each time we post a video, you'll be able to watch whether you have missed it or not. You just get the notification and then you'll be able to keep yourself abreast of development in the polity. My name is Franklin and Chisom, and Olisa Mbeki. We are ready for this conversation. So, Tony, we'll begin with the what happened yesterday between Atiku and the presidency. Atiku issued a statement where he talked about level of poverty in the country. He talked about so many things, and he said in the past 2 years of President Bola administration that nothing concrete has been achieved. And like they do say in our local parliament that now, and the presidency reacted saying that Atiku is out of touch with reality. And the presidency went on to cite what they believe are the current realities that suggest that Nigeria is on the right path. And I think we have to begin with the issues that Atiku raised. First of all, let's look at the issues. He talked about not making any progress, and he said that Nigeria risks having the kind of revolution that happened in some other climes. And he mentioned a particular country where he said that what happened there might happen. He said the 1789 French uprising and the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, that they might happen in Nigeria if care is not taken. Now let's begin from there. Is Nigeria on the edge, at the point of a possible revolution happening in this very country? Can that even happen? Don't forget that in the wake of what happened in Nepal, Nigerians were even talking about what happened there, that this can be done in Nigeria. It was driven by Gen Z, and we have Gen Z here in this country. So this issue of each time people talk about the possibility of revolution in Nigeria, can that happen? Because I have heard some people saying that Nigeria is the last place where that can happen because people are so much divided along ethnic and religious line. This part might agree, and this part might not agree.
When you talk about revolution, most times the person that has consistently used that word is Omoyele Sowore, who will tell you revolution now. And we saw how he piloted that during the NSAS protest and so many things that happened therein, but we saw how it fizzled out as well. When you talk about revolution, we have a social or cultural revolution, we have political revolution, and I'm guessing that article wasn't referring to social or cultural revolution, which is a profound transformation in society's norms, institutions, or ways of life. He wasn't talking about that one. He was talking about political revolution, which is usually a rapid and fundamental change in political power. So if that be the case, and then he did example about Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 and French Revolution of 1789 that lasted till 1799, because I know that revolution, I think it was about 10 years or thereabouts. So we know factors that led to these revolutions, uprisings, and where people had wanted to change government. Then Bayo Nonoga saying, article, you are out of touch. Aren't you aware that inflation is dropping for the 5th consecutive time? Inflation started dropping early January, and it has continued to drop. As we speak, I think it's about 20.28%, if I'm correct. I remember it was hovering about 22, 23 early this year, but it has gone down to these numbers. That is one. And the Bayo Ononoga also asks article, aren't you aware that there is stabilization in our foreign exchange? Aren't you aware? Aren't you aware that price of food products are also coming back as a result of the reforms, according to him, Mr. President has injected in the economy and the ones he has brokered and also engendered? Aren't you aware that this period, price of maize, price of millet, price of cassava, price of rice, some of these things are gradually coming back? You think these things are just falling naturally, but that's not true. You are out of touch that you need to ask questions. You don't just come out and start shouting revolution, just as the more electoral would do. But let's take you back to some of these indices or some of these things that happened when they happened. I remember very well. I could recall how Napoleon Bonaparte became popular at a point, became world figure, and how he met his fate at Waterloo. And that's how the word Waterloo even came into pictures. But the key thing is, what happened in France? There were things. France at that time was divided into 3 states. You have the first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. The first estate belongs to the clergy. The second estate belongs to the nobility. The third estate belongs to the common people, the proletariats. And these are people who shoulders the burden of taxation. They are heavily taxed. And they were the one who were doing the work, doing the toiling with little or nothing to show for it. But the clergy, that's the first estate, and the nobility, the second estate, these people had the privileges they were enjoying. But the key thing that started happening was high taxation. That is how it started. Remember, at that point, they were under monarchical system of government, where King Louis VIII reigned suzerain. And he was indecisive anyway, and the people disliked the wife, Queen Maria Antoinette. I could recall. But when price of bread in the in the market started going up, and people were shouldering high taxation, it's something that occurred naturally. But I know that somebody like Rosabelle, Danton, Mirat, these people played a role, because they were pushing the people, telling them that the government, the monarchical government at that time, was taking their own advantage, and they had nothing. So it just cumulated to what it was until a war general, Napoleon Bonaparte, at a point, I think it was in the year 17 85, he came on and also played his own role and hijacked the revolution, and where he also installed his kind of government, and we know what played out. So are we seeing similarities between what happened in France and what happened or what is going on in Nigeria? Yes, we know very well there is increase in price of fuel. Are we also going to say there is increase in taxes around the country? But I don't see Nigeria or Nigerians as we speak going into any revolution. So for me, that alarm Atiku is making may not be true.
Okay. Tony, at this point, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, because first, when I saw Atiku's statement and then I saw Bayan Onuga's, what I call it, rebuttal, I asked myself, who exactly is not in touch with reality here? Or do we have a different reality? I mean, the average Nigerian, from the reality of this other 1% of the 1% of Nigerians. And so while they might both not be on very balanced grounds, I'd like to point out a couple of things. Yes, we do not expect magic to happen. There's been a downward spiral of the inflation rate and the cost of living, but Nigerians are yet to get a couple of things that the president promised 2 years and a few months down the line after he removed fuel subsidy, most importantly. The first being the provision of a stable transportation system. How far? What about the conversion of vehicles to being CNG powered, hopefully reducing the overdependence on petrol? How far? What about the control of the prices of food commodity and all of that? How far? What is happening in the pharmaceutical industry? Oh, he promised, was it 10,000 employments in 1 year? How far? And so, while things are shifting downward gradually, would you call a 1,500 naira to $1 rate a stabilization?
I think I have just echoed what the government just said, but the truth remains that Nigerians are suffering. There is no doubt, and many Nigerians are getting into poverty as against lifting them out of poverty. Any government that witnesses its people going into poverty from time to time should look at itself and ask questions where necessary. Nigerians, many of them are passing through a lot. There's no doubt. I'm also aware, because there's no government that does not grant subsidy in one way or the other. If you ask Nigerian government, they will tell you the only subsidy they grant now is in the area of power, where they shoulder quite some percentage of power cost. But how many Nigerians have power? That's the big question. How many Nigerians, how many times do you even see the electric power? That's the only subsidy this country runs. But if you look at countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Iran, Venezuela, they still subsidize petrol, electricity, and cooking gas. They make energy very cheap for citizens and affordable. India, as we speak, I was actually watching one channel on one private televisions or paid television, and then it was Indian channel. I didn't know how I got in there. I was actually watching their news, and I saw what is going on in that very country between Narendra Modi and those he referred as illegals, and what is going on at their border with Bangladesh. But that's by the way. So even India, as we speak, subsidizes LPG, kerosene, electricity. Look at the population of India, over 1 billion people. Even China, as we speak, subsidizes coal and electricity production to keep energy costs. So even many countries, United States of America, runs a huge subsidy for corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, dairy crops. So many of them, European Union, as we know, about 27 of them, they run common agricultural policy, gives billions of euros yearly to farmers for income support and rural development. That's why food is generally cheap in most of these European countries. My friend who is in Germany told me that a chicken he buys, he may not even, it's very cheap. They cannot even finish in a week. But where do Nigerians these days, they cook with crayfish. Before the advent of this government, Nigerians were cooking with fish. I remember before Buhari came on board, Nigerians were cooking with chicken and what have you. The one you call turkey, there's a name they usually call it in our local palace. There's this name, is it tolo tolo tolo? You know, Nigerians were cooking with tolo tolo, cooking with chicken, cooking with goats. But over time, they came down to cooking with fish, and now many of them are cooking with crayfish. So it tells you how the decline has always been.
No.
So it's a very disturbing scenario. I would want a situation where government run subsidy on transportation and agricultural products. These are major keys. If you cannot address problems in these areas, the problem was to surmount and whatever gains, because these things are you know what people are calling these things? They call it audio inflation. That you keep telling them that inflation has dropped to 20 point something. That is audio. That is not because, something reflected on the way of living.
Because the two areas I want us to go into, one of them is this issue of trying to interrogate, these very facts or statistics that we have, and trying to juxtapose them with what Nigerians are feeling. Now, the very first one is let's look at what Atiku said. He said this government has made no impact in 2 years, and I want us to interrogate that. One is, are there reforms going on in the country now? Now, if there are reforms, are they bearing fruit? Can they bear fruit? Now, if they can bear fruit, why are Nigerians complaining and not feeling the impact of these very reforms? Tony.
You wouldn't say that the government hasn't done anything, because I've always believed, even somebody who does no much in the office, you wouldn't say he hasn't done anything at all. So, but the point remains that Atiku saying that the government has not made any impact, but would also want to interrogate and review what Atiku said. I know that the president began his economic and fiscal reforms, where he removed fuel petroleum subsidy. He tried to unify Naira, they floated the Naira and ended multiple exchange rates, and he brought tax reform bills. He introduced to the National Assembly, which has been passed, and then by 2026 we will see the realization or the implementation of that. And also I'm aware that he has done something in the area of boosting foreign direct investment, including large commitment from Indian investors. He started a major infrastructural project like Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, and also upgrading the ports at Apapa, Lekki, to accommodate larger ships. And then I think in the area of education and human capital, the president established the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, to help students access higher education. For me, that is working, and I will not deny it.
So Tony,
yes,
from what you have said, if the government says that they are carrying out reforms, can we concur that reforms are ongoing?
It depends on what you define as reforms. It depends. Nigerians, when you talk about reforms, they want to see a shift from the way we are doing things to a new way of doing things. They want to see a shift to a new order that will make things seamless. But Nigerian government has said the reforms we are carrying out is more like a reform that comes with a bed pang, but there will be joy in the morning. That's what they have told Nigerians. But I've looked around, I've not seen them also putting themselves through what Nigerians are passing through. The cost of governance has remained largely bloated over time. I had wanted, if the president is saying he is making reform, because I've looked around the world, most times when you look at these reforms, government coming with austerity measure where everybody tightens their belt. You cannot tell the people to tighten their belt where you loosen up your own belt as government officials. As a government, it does not work. You lead by first tightening your own belt and tell the people, let's tighten our belt. We inherited a shattered economy, a shambolic economy, and we are ready to fix it. You must demonstrate intent, and once you demonstrate intent, people will queue behind you to see to the realization, to the fruition, to the implementation of whatever intent you have proposed. Once you have not done that, people will not believe you, they will not agree with you, and they will not trust whatever reforms you are trying to make. So it depends on what you define as reform.
Okay. By way of definition, a reform is a deliberate change or improvement made to an existing systems, law, policy, institution, or practice with the aim of correcting faults addressing problems or making it to work better. If you want to narrow it to governance and politics, you can say that reform often means changing laws or institutions to promote fairness, efficiency, or justice, things like electoral reform, tax reform, and what have you not. So, just for the purpose of this very conversation. Now, let's now get to what Bayo Nandega said. He said that what Atiku said demonstrates that he's not in tune with the realities. And Onanuga is talking about realities in respect of the increase we have seen in the foreign reserve, the consecutive drop in inflation, the more money that governors now have coming from FAC allocation and what have you not, then the trade surplus they have recorded. But when you talk to Nigerians will tell you that we can't feel the impact of these things on our lives. It's like government is on the left and people are on the right. So how do we juxtapose the reality of the government and the reality of the people, so that we can now look into the future and know what we can see in the foreseeable future, Tony?
For me, there is disparity between the government and the people. What government tag as reform, for people, is not reform. You are imposing hardship on them and label it reform. And where they are not seeing the gains, that the governors have more money to work. How has that translated to improve welfare of the people? Remember, the primary responsibility of government, there are just two things, Constitution captioned: security and their welfare. And for the framers of the Constitution, it is the more reason government does exist. So whatever reforms you are bringing on board, and it does not tackle the issue of security or making people to feel more secure, or improving on the security already in existence, or also improving on their welfare, and you tell them is reform, they will not believe you. Secondly, when the government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have faulted the manner and way he removed subsidy, and I stand to be challenged. No country in the world remove subsidy enjoyed over time in a day. They gradually phase it out. It's just one phase to the other. The idea is so that it will not affect the economy, or it will not give that kind of shock to the economy that it could not be able to absorb. The president, during swearing in, subsidy is gone. That very same day, look at our stock market. Look at how a lot of things tumbled. Economy was put into disarray. That very singular day. That is not how a prepared government comes up with its own agenda. Yes, you have listened to, have also followed subsidy removals across different sectors in different parts of the world. I can boldly tell you how some of them were removed or even replaced with existing one, or replaced with non-existing one. So that was where the shock began. And for record's sake, we have not seen increase or improvement in our security. And whatever reforms you are telling the people, the cost of governance has not gone down. And where there is this allegation that you bought new presidential jets from service Y vote or for Y win vote, and you bought presidential yachts and all manner of things people have accused. You've been to different countries and you've spent so much billions of naira truncating around the world in the name of laundering our image. Every president that comes on board tells you the first thing he will embark upon is to launder our image before the international community. And I've questioned this and have said, this international community we are talking about, they have presence in Nigeria. Many of them have embassies. They have high commission and they see things the way they are. You can't go there and tell them lies against what their embassies or high commissions are seeing in this country. So it depends on what you're laundering. It's important that if you do not prioritize the welfare of the people as a government, you always get this backlash. Just like I told you earlier on, China, India, Brazil, these are countries with large population, not even forgetting Pakistan. You see how they prioritize on the welfare of the people, the household income, which measures everything. How do we promote it? Do we have plans for households? How do we measure our national planning? Do we have the data? Do we have the statistics? How do we make our future plans? See, we have a humongous problem in this country as a nation, no matter how you view it.
So that same is when these back and forth was going on. That was the same time that the NBS released the data about our inflation rate, and said it has dropped to 20 point something percent.
Great.
And I have seen people in the presidency, the likes of Daniel Bwala and co, they are celebrating, saying that this is the 5th consecutive drop. And the question has been, where were we many years ago that we are now at the point of 20% and we're celebrating? And then how do we now marry the two, that we are recording drop in inflation, but we have not seen the effect in the price of commodities in the market?
Okay, let me actually do a very short analysis here. And when you asked Franklin, when you said, where were we? I'm going to use the last 1 year as a woman who goes to a Nigerian market to juxtapose. It got to a point sometime last year that you'd buy a liter of vegetable oil for 3,700, 4,000, 4,200. Last Sunday, I bought the same brand for 3,500. I mean, talking about the downward spiral. But I'm going to tell you something. Less than 3 years ago, the same vegetable oil was sold for 1,314. So you see the difference. And when you ask, where Tony, I think at this point you should now take over. Where were we? How did we get here? And while we are celebrating this it's factual. This reduction in the prices are the people's realities commiserate. Looking at the present minimum wage, looking at how expensive so many things have become, are the people really faring better?
People are not faring better, no matter how you look at it. Nigerians are suffering. I keep saying this. If you are to talk about inflation, and what is inflation? Either the sudden increase in the price of goods and services. So what that means is whenever there is inflation, there is erosion of purchasing power. Whenever there is inflation, your currency loses value. It's important we also highlight that. And if you are to talk about inflation in Kenya is 4.1%, and we are having inflation 20.28%, and you are telling me that some people are celebrating it. If we celebrate inflation 20.28% in Nigeria, then those in Kenya will go agog. They would in fact mount different mountains and then start shouting Eureka, as Archimedes did when he discovered upthrust. So if you go to South Africa, what is inflation rate in South Africa? 3.5% as of July 2025. That's South Africa, 3.5%, and we have 20.28%. The only country that is also battling inflation the way we are battling inflation is Ghana, where I know very well that Ghana has inflation rate of about 22.4% as at March. I've not been able to follow the recent months, so it tells you a lot. But I'm also aware that there is a country battered by high rate of inflation like Ethiopia, where it has inflation rate of about 30%. But outside that, look at Kenya, look at Egypt. Egypt has I think inflation rate of about 12% in August 2025. I don't want to talk about countries like Germany, United States of America, UK. Germany inflation rate is about 2.2%. That's Germany. If you talk about UK, it's about 3.8%. And here we have inflation 20.28%, and we're celebrating. Somebody would ask, why wouldn't they celebrate? Do you know where we're coming from? There was a time headline inflation was over 40%, and for government to drag it from 40% down to 20.28%, why wouldn't celebrate? And you ask, which party put it to that percent? When APC came into power, what was the inflation rate? Inflation did not even hit double figures. Quote me, it was around 8 point or 9 point something percent. That was our inflation before APC came into power. So they took it to 40, brought it down to 20, and they are rejoicing.
So Tony, what do you think is actually driving the inflation down? Because like you said, if you go to the market, there are some commodities you might see that there's a slight difference in the price of what you bought like 2 months ago. And now, for instance, a bag of 50 kg of rice, of course, there's a difference. We must acknowledge that. I think a bag of rice now you can buy between 65 to 75,000, depending on the quality and the brand. But this downward inflation we are seeing now, what can we say is happening? Is it as a result of the reform that the government is trying to institute, or perhaps it's because we are in the harvest season? That's why we're having surge.
I think the key thing that takes inflation away is where government is fighting the speculators. And when you have some kind of steady exchange rate, no matter how high it is, it brings down the price of commodities. When people are not sure what the money or what the exchange rate will be in the next minute, it gives room for speculators to make money. They may buy low, sell high, they sell, or things like that. So whenever there is stabilization, I know a friend who goes to China to buy goods. His worry is always this issue of foreign exchange. He will always tell me, let it stand somewhere. At least let it be somewhere. We know that if by the time I must have gone to China to bring in my goods, the exchange rate will go up. It means that he has made rubbish of what I have bought. So I have to put the price up, and in an attempt to do that, people may not buy the goods. So it's a problem.
Can we say it's a combination of factors? Like what we're having now, this downward trend, that is a combination of what the government is doing. On the other side, the realities of that we are in harvest season.
We must put it, I like being fair. Why these things are coming down? Two reasons. What government is doing, and then being in a harvest period, because Nigerians are in a harvest period. Many things are coming out from the farms. We have seen yam, we've seen many of these things are being harvested at this point. So it's expected that there will be boom, especially when these agricultural products are many. So that is one. And then we must also look at what government is doing in area of fiscal and monetary policy. I've been able to explain this here. Monetary policy is something that is championed by the central bank. Then the fiscal policy is something championed by the government. And then when you talk about fiscal policy, it's all about revenue, taxation, and the expenditures of government. These three things must sync with the monetary policy of the central bank. We've talked about the MPR, the monetary policy rate. I don't know, because they keep increasing it. The idea is to withdraw a lot of money in circulation so that small money will be chasing fewer goods or more goods. We are small money will be chasing more goods, as the case may be. So I have seen the monetary policy team, they keep increasing the MPR, and we also look at other rates. They do increase. There's what we call liquidity ratio, there's what we call cash reserve ratio, and then when you talk about the asymmetrical corridors, they have been able to make it to be flexible. So the man at the CBN, that is the pattern they have adopted. The idea for them is to withdraw a lot of money in circulation, so even though it affects investment, because when you increase the MPR, manufacturers, industrialists won't be able to get money from the bank to put into their business, to expand their business. They will not be able to do that because the rate is high. How can somebody pay 28% of any money he borrows from the bank? So it affects investment, there's no doubt. But it also, on the other side, tries to tackle inflation. So we must give it to everybody listening that why we have this drop is as a result of the government, the fiscal policy, and then the monetary policy of the government, and the harvest period we are in.
All right, so let's go to this very political story about PDP warning INEC that there should be no glitches on any excuse by 2027, because yesterday the PDP called for strict implementation of legal framework mandating the electronic transmission of election result in 2027 general elections, warning that it will resist any attempt to manipulate the process or undermine the will of Nigerians. And there is this very thing here that says that Section 64, so Section 4, 5, and 6 of the Electoral Act of 2024 provide for recording and transmission of election result directly from the polling units using the smart card reader or any other electronic device determined by Electoral Commission. So, without going to dwell so much on what the PDP is saying, they are saying that what happened in 2023, 2027, there should be a difference, that INEC should begin to do the proper thing. And I'm wondering if PDP is talking to the right people or just making noise in the media.
They are just making noise. They are just making noise. One thing people don't understand is applying the same measure, expecting different results, and that is the height of insanity. You are in a political game, and you've been robbed, according to you, many times, and you're not telling them, don't rob me again. Who do you think will listen to you? you have to use other options you have to agenda some of these proposals you're making. We need electoral reforms. You have some senators, you have some members in the National Assembly. Have they been compromised? Have they been bought over? How many of them make this cause to see to the change of our electoral act? Nobody's talking about electoral act reforms. And there have been this call that we need to have electronic transmission of results, electronic collation of results, and where IREV will be given life. IREV has no life as far as electoral act is concerned. If INEC promises you that, one, we are going to transmit these results live, we are going to ensure electronic collations. If they don't do it, the law does not hold them. That's one thing people don't understand. They can put it in their guidelines. Supreme Court has made us to know that their guidelines is no law. So they can promise you anything, and if they don't do that, you don't get anything out of it.
So what is stopping us from making them do it, make it binding on them to do it?
PDP has members both at the Senate and House of Representatives. They are the ones to start making these demands through sponsoring bills, and let's see how it goes, and they will call on Nigerians to support them. Even if INEC, that IREV you are seeing, they what do you call it? They tell you server. That's the Nigerian language. INEC calls it their own portal, IREV. Nigerians call it server. That's what we call it. Even if they put the results, sometimes they upload the results there. They will tell you it's for record purpose. That result that put it in there is for record purpose. It's not for determining who wins election at a particular constituency, at a particular senatorial district or gubernatorial contest. It does not show that what determines who wins that contest is based on declaration at the collation, not what is there in the IREV, not what has been transmitted there. So what that is being transmitted there is more like it where you put in your trash.
Wait, Tony, forgive me, but I'd like us to make a couple of things clearer here. So what it means is that if the figures do not tally, that on the IRF cannot supersede.
It does not. It makes no meaning, even if the figures at the collation and the one at IRF, if they do not tally, the one at the IRF has no life. It's lifeless.
So why are we still here?
It's lifeless.
That this is the interpretation
that is the law
has given it, because it amounts to a waste of resources. I must tell you. There is a lot of money going into the whole server, the IREV and everything. So why are we wasting money on things that we are not making a stable and a tangible part of our electoral process?
That is the problem. INEC has said, for these things to have life, we need to amend the Electoral Act to give them life. They have brought those things to tell you it's doable. It can work. But we need to give it life.
What's keeping us from giving it?
And they are telling you that they're handicapped by these politicians. And many of them that are there do not win the elections. They came into that assembly through thuggery, ballot snatching, rewriting results, and so many things they did. They know those things. How many of them are popular, before their constituents? They are not popular, and many of them cannot even go home. So if you bring these things to them, they are planning on how to state manage a lot of things, to change the system and be there again and still enjoying the largesse. If you are being paid over 20 million monthly as overhead costs, outside salary, and so many other things, and whatever they bring, as long as it does not affect your re-election through illegal means, you can always support. That is the problem. So many of them, they are thinking about the next election.
All right, so we're going to go for a commercial break, but I have to pop up this very question. Have you seen the kite flying now in the media on where the next INEC chairman might possibly come from? I don't know if you've seen the kite flying, because some people are already dropping analysis of where former INEC chairman had come from in the past. And people are not saying this seems to be an indication that he's going to come from the southwest. If that happens, hear it from here. Let's go for this commercial break.
If it happens, please.
We're going to talk about it anyway.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
Arise and shine, Anambra youths. Onyani ga-akwado ka ọ bụrụ gọvanọ anyị na Anambra steeti bụ Okeke Chika Jerry nwafọ Anambra steeti wee gụzie akwụkwọ na mahadum nke Unizik nke dị n'Ọka wee nọrọzie na ala Onitsha wee na-eme biznes ya. Ọ bụ nwokorobịa na-agbasi mbọ ike, ọ bụkwa nwokorobịa mara uru ịgụ akwụkwọ bara, an industrialist. Edeela ọtụtụ akwụkwọ dị iche iche nke ọtụtụ ụlọ akwụkwọ dị na Anambra steeti ji amụ ihe ugbu a. O nwere skulu nke aka ya nke a na-akpọ Chika Jerry College kwa an employer of labor, a man that is closer to the masses. Pụtanụ n'igwe ka anyị tụnyere Okeke Chika Jerry na Boot Party ka ọ bụrụ gọvanọ Anambra steeti. Vote Boot Party because of our tomorrow.
Quality bread, Wendy's bread, for your family breakfast. Wendy's bread, I'll pack it on the dozialo. Wendy's bread, mama papa they like Wendy's bread, that it on and do. Wendy's bread, even children they like Wendy's bread, Wendy's bread, Ninta. Wendy's bread, you get it better tasty, we go sweet your belly. Wendy's bread, Wendy's your body choma. Wendy's bread, the champion.
Wendy's bread, your tasty bread. You can contact us on our official address, Second Business Park, Enugu Road, GRA, beside Onitsha, Anambra State. We also have another branch at St. Michael Plaza at Tandy Road. Also contact us on 070-1149-1571. Wendy's bread, your tasty bread.
Wendy's bread.
My people, I present to you the most preferred governorship candidate for Anambra State, John Chuma Nwosu of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. John Chuma Nwosu is ready to take Anambra State from insecurity to peace, from regression to progression. Vote John Chuma Nwosu. Vote ADC, African Democratic Congress.
ADC, ADC,
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
You're listening to the Polity. Get involved now.
Of course, you are listening to the Polity on that Radio 104.7 FM, and it's time for you to get involved. Of course, we have talked about a couple of things, the way we saw it in newspapers, and of course, we have brought you analysis from here, our studio. And my name is Franklin Ebuka, and I have Dr. Olisa Mbeki and the Chisom Udala of us together for this very conversation. And before we went for that very commercial break, of course, I raised an issue which I said, in case that happens, of course, know that we brought it up on this very platform. We have to quickly just touch that a bit before we bring you in, and then talk about this very hysteria that we witness regarding that by January next year, if you don't have TIN, tax identification number, you might not be able to operate a bank account. You know, we saw this very hysteria, but we have seen clarification coming from federal governments on what the real issue is. So Tony, quickly, we just have 1 minute to deal with these two issues.
I think let me begin with that of thing. People are misinterpreting the law. You know, the one that will be taking effect by January 1st, 2026. So it's important we make this statement. So the issue of thing, tax identification number, from the law, I've been able to cite it, I've been able to go through it. For people who are already in business, who have bank accounts, if you are an individual, your NIN, national identity number, serve as your TIN. And for businesses, your corporate, your CAC registration number can also serve as your TIN. But if you want to open a new account, TIN becomes essential. A new bank account, TIN becomes essential. But your CAC registration number and your national identification number can serve as your tax identification number. So there is another one given. There is no doubt for those who would like to process it. So once those one, they can easily be, because for from the look of things, people keep saying that without tin you can't do this. You need to be identified with a number with which tax can be paid. So it could be tin, it could be the very one we know as tin, it could be the national identity number, it could also be your CAC registration. So the most important thing that government uses that to ensure payment of transactions. So I don't think there is need for all this controversy about the implementation of the law come 2026. And then you talked about the INEC chairman, Mahmoud.
The kite being flown about where the person could likely come from.
His office expires on the 9th of November, a day after Anambra State governorship election. His last assignment will be Anambra State gubernatorial election, which will be conducted on 8th. On the 9th, he's handing over. So there has been speculations as where the new INEC chairman will come from. And there are people who are saying that none seems to have come from the southwest. I remember even during the time of Eyo Eswa, who was the ECN, Electoral Commission of Nigeria chairman from 1964 down to 1966 to the time of Michael Ane, when Obasanjo brought him to ensure transition, and he was there from 1976 to 1979. Michael Ane was from Cross River State, Eyo Eswa from Cross River State, Victor Ovia Whiskey from 1980, whom Shehu Shagari had brought in to see to 1983 general election. He was from Delta State. Even Emawa IBB had brought, who served from 1987 to 1989, was from Abia State. And then we talk about Humphrey Musu, our own man, from 1989 to 1993, from Anambra State. I think his community is very close here. Talking about Okoneya. Remember, Okoneya succeeded Humphrey Musu. I think Okoneya was from Akwa Ibom, yes. And then you have Sona Dagogo Jack that Abacha brought in. Abacha brought in two persons, Okoneya, and then also brought in Sona Dagogo Jack. Dagogo Jack, everybody knows that name as a River State name. So if you talk about Ephraim Apata from 1998, whom Abdul Salam Abubakar had brought to see to 1999 general election, Ephraim Apata was from Edo State, I'm aware. Are you going to talk about Ebe Gubodia, who succeeded Ephraim Apata in 2000? He was from Edo State. Are you going to talk about Maurice Iwu? Maurice Iwu from 2005 down to 2010. He served that single time of 5 years. From Imo State, Atahiru Jaga. From 2010, who succeeded Maurice Iwu, to 2015, single term of 5 years. Atahiru Jaga is from Kebbi State, right? From Kebbi, yes. Then
Northwest.
Yeah, from Kebbi State. Then you talk about Mahmudu Yakubu, my very good friend. He's my very good friend, and he has served at two double term. So I don't know how to put it. You remember, he has been there from 2015 and now to 2025. He has been the only one who have had 2 terms. Nobody in the history have had. Some did not even complete their single term. So he's from Bauchi State. So the point remains: nobody from Southwest. Nobody. If you look at the demographics, Southeast have had it, South have had it, Northwest have had it, Northeast have had it. So North Central and Southwest. So Mr. President, being from Southwest, it will be immoral to bring such a chairman from your own region. What about North Central? From the whole thing we talked about, North Central have not had it. So forget where the kite flies.
So we'll leave it at this point, so that let's see what they are going to use. Okay, what they're going to do with this kite that has been flown, because we know that a kite has been flown.
But I know, in fact, the name that is being paraded, let's not talk about it, because
let's not preempt.
Yeah. So, but that's by the way. But my concern is this: we need to amend the Electoral Act on a serious note. I don't see reason a president should be appointing a match official in a game.
He's playing
it's not. It doesn't make sense.
All right.
We should do away with this.
Are you calling him Howard Webb?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. We must do away with such practice. There is no country.
All right. 08032216973 or 08038276694. Don't forget you have 2 minutes and you have to stay away from your radio set. Good morning.
Good morning, the parliamentarians.
Good morning, your name?
You're welcome.
Obike Probobosi. I proceed. I just want to comment on this kidnapping issue in this country. It's out of hand already. The thing is not giving me any joy at all. Before anybody sit on any seat as a president or governor in this country, they swear to protect life and property. But every day, every week, every month, they are kidnapping people in this country. In broad daylight, not in the night. But we have police, we have army. What month is about when they collect their salary? What are they doing? We have security here and who will bail the cat in this country? The thing is hitting my office, disturbing my office. If you are in the market, you are not safe. Inside the church, you are not safe. In the box, you are not safe. Moving on the road, you are not safe. In your car, you are not safe. But we are in a country. But we have president and governor them. That they are talking about November 8th election, talking about 2027 election. What does that mean? Let them save life and property.
All right.
I rest my case here. You are blessed.
All right. Thank you, PK. Thank you for calling. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is my name is George, calling from Asaba.
George, go on.
Yeah. Let me talk about the issue of what happened at Abuja about the government on the seat now don't know exactly what is happening. Look, imagine the time that this business took place. So the young man had been banging the money since how many years, and I feel that it's the time of social media. Why can't he do it since 2002 that have been illegal having the issue? It does that. Listen, the politics of Nigeria is getting dirty. It's getting dirty, and the way they are going about it is very disgraceful. Even anybody that will be there at the end of the day win the election and sit down in that seat as a governor, let him assure of himself that with the activity and whatever he is doing shows that we can never be trusted. Are we talking about the insults? Are we talking about the public insults? What is going on? You show some kind of certain character. You go to campaign. You will tell the people what we do for the people. You now tell them you start starting to down drum or your opponent. We don't need that kind of politics in Nigeria. If tomorrow that you've not been in the point, we have seen a different character from you. People will say, I will not listen to this man. But by your word, by your the way you speak, always show your character as a human being. So that is just something we must understand here.
All right.
We all know that the politics is dirty, but the way we are going about it, we are showing that we can do anything. We can even take 2 life for us to be in the seat. Then the young man see today that they only that money. Yeah, that's disgraceful. Putting in social media. They owe money. Yeah, pay me my money. I beg you, go sleep.
All right. Okay. Thank you, George. George has judged the matter. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? All right. 08032216973 or 08038276694. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Let me just move out. Good morning, my lady. Olisa Mbeki, good morning. Good morning, my friend. First name.
Yeah,
my
welcome.
name is Udala. I'm running out from the radio is now. Yes, very interesting day it is. George, yes, he Georgie. I mean, I will continue from where he started. I'm actually going a bit too far in a dirty politicking. Just the other day, because Mrs. Soludo and Mrs. What's her name?
Ekunife.
Ekunife. Yeah. Ekunife. Now this. Should we keep cutting our noses just to spite our face? Why should we keep doing that? Okay, don't you do that in your and that's so, and you come on the name on. All the no udo. Now, name on. The book say no. And I got on. And then having said that, do we have to risk everything for everything we've achieved for a lifetime? For a transit glory, can we do that if only for 8 years? Only 8 years, you use everything you got. Do you really, are you sure you're going to do that 8 years? Yeah? As for Nigeria, the second one, if we cannot lie about hunger, how else do we do it? Can you go up country? Go up country. Is that Nigeria we don't love ourselves? When you go up, people weep. You weep for Nigeria. Yes, they have Kachoko in Katsina State. Yes. I'm telling you the truth. And Tony, the other day we were looking for what to call their country of hunger. Pelosi. That is what it is. Ravaging the northern part of our country, our brothers and sisters are dying there. I think we should know better. Should have put it up there, what is them? I don't know, whatever. Here's a yes man. He got to eat. Does it work well? What's the other? His brother.
All right, thank you.
Left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Now, cut and breathe. Now, please, 1 second, please.
Okay.
Okay.
London Bridge has been there centuries. Pattern Bridge is about to